Welcome to AI Paper Podcasts. Today we are looking directly at a paper called exactly this, RAGEN-2, Reasoning Collapse in Agentic RL.
Right, and we are skipping the fluff today. The core problem here is that RL training for multi-turn LLM agents is, well, it is incredibly unstable.
And the really scary part is that the metric we all use to track that stability, entropy, it is basically a liar.
It absolutely is. We track entropy to guarantee reasoning diversity, but it completely misses what the authors call template collapse.
Which is where models just spit out these really diverse-sounding templates, but they completely ignore the actual input prompt you gave them.
Exactly. So the researchers mathematically proved that we have to stop looking at entropy and start measuring mutual information, or MI, instead.
Because the root cause of this whole mess is a signal-to-noise ratio problem. It is an SNR problem in your gradients.
Yet when your reward variance drops, your standard regularizers, like KL divergence, they just overpower the actual task signal. They literally erase the input dependence.
But there is a fix, right? SNR-Aware Filtering. You basically just throw out the low reward variance prompts during training.
Yep, and it boosts task performance across the board without costing a single extra FLOP of compute.
Okay, so that is the 60-second summary. But to actually implement this without, totally wrecking your sample efficiency, we really need to unpack the mechanics here.
We do. And I think we have to start with the dashboard illusion, right? As an industry, we just treat stable entropy like a clean bill of health.
Oh, for sure. If the loss curve goes down and entropy is stable, you just assume the policy is exploring effectively. But this paper shows stable entropy can completely mask severe template collapse.
Yeah, and that blind spot exists because we just fundamentally misinterpret what entropy actually measures in an RL fine-tuning context.
Right, we have to separate conditional entropy from mutual information.
Exactly. So when we measure reasoning diversity on our dashboards, we're usually proxying conditional entropy, which is the entropy of Z given X.
Which only tracks diversity within the same input space, right? Like, it just asks the model, for this specific prompt, are you generating a wide variety of tokens across different rollouts?
Yes, and that is useful if you want to ensure the model is not just, collapsing into a single degenerate loop.
Right.
But it doesn't tell you if the model is actually paying attention to the environment at all. For that, you need mutual information.
MI.
Right, the mutual information between X and Z. That measures cross-input distinguishability. It asks, does the reasoning trajectory actually change because the input state changed?
And the authors map this out beautifully into what they call the 4 quadrants of reasoning. So the ideal state is diverse reasoning.
Yeah, that is where both conditional entropy and mutual information are high. The model explores different paths, but those paths are actually grounded in the specific problem.
Right, then you have compressed reasoning. That is where entropy is low, but MI is high. The model essentially finds one perfect deterministic way to solve the problem and just executes it.
Right. And then there was low entropy collapse, where both metrics are just near zero.
Yeah, that is when the model just spits out, I don't know, over and over. We have all seen that on a dashboard.
Oh, absolutely. But the main villain of this paper is the 4th quadrant, which is template collapse.
Right.
Here, conditional entropy stays high, so your dashboard looks perfectly green, but mutual information drops to near zero.
Which means the model learns to generate these really long, complex-sounding thoughts that have literally nothing to do with the specific state of the environment.
Exactly.
It is honestly just like watching a highly trained politician in a debate.
Oh, that is a great way to put it.
Right, like you ask them a really specific, difficult question about macroeconomic policy. They don't freeze up. They give you this beautiful, eloquent 5-minute speech.
With a very rich vocabulary.
Exactly. The syntax is varied. The vocabulary is rich. If you measured the entropy of their speech, it would be off the charts.
But they give that exact same canned speech regardless of what question was actually asked.
Exactly. The mutual information between the interviewer's prompt and the politician's answer is zero.
The output is superficially diverse, but totally input-agnostic. And because it is so fluent and long, the standard reward models just wave it right through.
Especially in multi-turn environments where rewards are sparse, right? Like web navigation or coding.
Yeah, this template collapse can just persist totally unnoticed because the model occasionally stumbles into a positive reward by pure chance.
And since the reasoning chain is so long and linguistically diverse, your KL penalties and entropy bonuses are perfectly happy.
They're completely satisfied.
So if entropy is letting these useless input-agnostic rants slide right by, we have a massive blind spot. We have to track mutual information instead.
We do.
But wait, computationally, finding true MI for like 1,000-token reasoning trace is basically intractable. You can't compute closed-form MI across high-dimensional sequence spaces.
No, you definitely can't. So they engineered a really effective proxy called in-batch cross-scoring, or retrieval accuracy.
Okay, how does that work?
The intuition is pretty simple. If your reasoning trace is genuinely doing the work of solving the problem, it basically acts like a cryptographic fingerprint for that specific prompt.
So you should be able to reverse search it.
Exactly. And if it is just a generic collapsed template, it is going to look highly plausible for any random prompt in your batch.
Right.
So what they do is take a generated reasoning trace and score its log likelihood against all the other prompts currently sitting in the training batch.
I see. So if it scores highest on its true source prompt, it is actually grounded in the input.
Right. But if it scores equally well on any random prompt from the batch, then you are experiencing template collapse.
But wait, hold on. As an ML engineer, if I have a batch of, say, 64 prompts, and I have to run a cross-scoring retrieval against every single one of them on every training step,
Yeah.
isn't that going to just completely grind my training loop to a halt? I mean, the compute overhead for that has to be massive.
Well, that would be true if we were generating new rollouts. But the brilliance of this proxy is that it's totally teacher-forced on the data you already have in memory.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. You just reuse the exact prompt trajectory pairs you generated during the normal training rollout. There is no additional autoregressive generation.
So no external reference model or extra inference passes?
None. You are strictly performing a cross-entropy calculation. It is just matrix math on your existing logits, so it is essentially free.
Wow. Okay, that makes it incredibly practical. And from those retrieval scores, they derive this continuous metric, right? The MIZ score EMA.
Yeah, they normalize the scores using an exponential moving average. That way you can track it smoothly over time on your dashboard.
And when they plotted that continuous metric against actual task success, the correlations were just a massive indictment of how we monitor RL training right now.
The numbers are stark. Mutual information had a really strong positive correlation with final task performance, like plus 0.39.
But entropy actually showed a negative correlation.
Yeah, ranging from minus 0.11 to minus 0.14.
That is wild. The very metric the entire industry relies on to ensure stability is actively correlating negatively with the agent's actual ability to solve the task.
Because, like you said, you are optimizing for the politician's speech.
Right. Optimizing to maintain high entropy is mathematically pushing you away from actual performance.
Exactly.
So, okay, we have the diagnostic now. We know how to track MI without burning compute. But to actually patch this, we really need to look at the root cause.
We need to understand the pathogen.
Right. Why do algorithms like PPO or GRPO incentivize this in the first place? I mean, the model doesn't just decide to ignore the prompt out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't. So to understand this, we have to break down the gradient update into two opposing parts. Every update is basically a tug-of-war.
Okay.
First, you have your task gradient, which is G-task. This pulls the model toward actions that actually yielded a high advantage based on the reward.
The task relevant signal.
Exactly. And then you have your regularizer gradient, Greg. This is your task agnostic gradient that comes from your KL divergence penalties and your entropy bonuses.
Because if you don't have those KL penalties anchoring you to the reference model, your policy will just collapse into a degenerate loop.
Right, you need them. But here is the empirical observation from the paper. They sorted all the training prompts into buckets based on their reward variance.
And reward variance just measures the spread of outcomes for a specific prompt across multiple rollouts, right?
Yes. So if the model sometimes succeeds and sometimes fails on a prompt, the reward variance is high. The model is actively learning.
But if it always fails or always succeeds, the reward variance is 0.
Exactly. Now, when they analyzed the gradient norms across those specific variance buckets, they found that the regularizer gradient, Greg, is just a constant force.
Wait, really? It doesn't scale at all?
Not at all. Its magnitude was completely flat across all reward variance buckets. It just applies uniform contraction to every single reasoning chain, demanding fluency and proximity to the base model.
Regardless of whether that chain actually solved the problem.
Exactly. But the task gradient, G-task, that scales directly with reward variance.
Okay, I think of it like tuning an old analog radio in a car.
Okay, I like this.
So the task gradient, which is the signal actually teaching the model what actions are good, that is the radio station you want to hear.
Right.
And the regularizer, which is just blindly pulling you toward the base model, that is the background static.
Yep.
When the radio station signal is strong, which means high reward variance, you hear the broadcast perfectly. The static is there, but the signal-to-noise ratio is high.
But when the radio station signal drops out, like when reward variance hits 0, because the prompt is either way too hard or already perfectly solved.
The volume of the static doesn't change. It just becomes the only thing you hear. It completely takes over the broadcast.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right.
And translated back to the model's parameters, when that task signal drops, the constant regularizer completely dominates the parameter update.
So the model learns to just output these really diverse, fluent tokens to satisfy the regularizer, but it stops caring entirely about the prompt.
The signal-to-noise ratio plummets, and template collapse sets in.
Wow. So knowing that low reward variance is basically a direct proxy for a low signal-to-noise ratio, the researchers proposed this fix called SNR-Aware Filtering.
Yeah, and it is shockingly simple. They advocate for literally just throwing out the low variance noisy data before you even compute the update.
Walk me through exactly how that pipeline works.
Sure. At each training iteration, you perform your standard rollouts. Then you compute the within prompt reward variance for those rollouts.
Yeah.
You rank all the prompts in your batch based on this variance, and finally you apply a top filter. So for example, you might keep the top 90% of the cumulative variance.
I see.
You only perform the policy update on this high signal subset. The gradients for the low variance, noisy prompts, are just zeroed out entirely.
But wait, standard deep learning dogma says more data is always better. If I am zeroing out like 10 to 20% of my batch on every single step, aren't I hurting my sample efficiency?
It definitely feels counterintuitive.
Right. Shouldn't more data always be better for the gradients?
Well, not when you look at the math in Theorem J1 of the paper. That theorem breaks down the mean squared error of the gradient estimator.
Okay.
The mean squared error of your gradient is the sum of its bias squared and its variance. When you include low SNR prompts, the gradient direction is dominated by the regularizer bias.
And it carries massive variance from the random, uninformative task rewards.
Precisely. So injecting zero mean noise from low SNR updates just causes mathematical parameter drift.
Meaning adding that data doesn't just dilute the gradient, it strictly increases the error of your gradient estimation.
Yes, you are actively forcing the optimizer to wander aimlessly. By discarding that low SNR data, you are strictly reducing the gradient estimation error. Less data, but higher quality data, leads to faster convergence.
That makes total sense. And the paper makes a point to contrast this top filtering approach with a standard top K filter. Why is the adaptive part of top so important?
Because training dynamics shift dramatically over time. Early in training, the policy is essentially just guessing, right? So reward variance is high across almost the whole batch.
Right.
But as the policy converges and actually masters the task, more and more prompts hit zero variance.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah. If you use a fixed top K filter, say you always force the update to include 50 out of 64 prompts.
Eventually, you're going to run out of high variance prompts.
Exactly. You will be forced to let zero variance noise back into your update just to hit your arbitrary quota of 50.
But a top filter dynamically tightens. As more prompts hit zero variance, it automatically drops more uninformative batches.
It acts as a dynamic shield that scales perfectly with the model's actual proficiency.
Okay, the theory is beautiful, but does this actually survive contact with large-scale environments? Technical listeners are going to want to know if this actually moves the needle.
Oh, it absolutely does. The empirical validation here is really what makes this a required technique. They validated SNR-Aware, filtering across multiple RL algorithms.
We are talking standard PPO, GRPO, and even newer stabilizers like DPO and Dr. GRPO, right?
Yes. And they scaled it from 0.5 billion parameters all the way up to 7 billion parameters using models like Qwen 2.5 and Llama 3.2-3B.
They even pushed it into multimodal architectures, didn't they? They tested it on Qwen 2.5 VL.
They did. And the multimodal results are incredibly revealing. With a visual language model, template collapse looks very specific.
How so?
The model starts completely ignoring the visual tokens like the actual image state provided in the prompt, and just relies entirely on the text prompt to generate a generic reasoning template.
Wow, so it just goes totally blind to the image to save effort?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But when they applied SNR-Aware filtering to Qwen 2.5 VL, it forced the model to reground its reasoning in the spatial reality of the image.
So it completely recovered that input dependence. That is huge. But I really want to point out how this impacts GRPO specifically.
Oh, yeah. The math there is concerning.
It really is. It is fascinating that GRPO suffers from this exact same collapse because we are seeing a massive industry shift toward GRPO since it drops the need for a separate value network.
Right.
But GRPO relies entirely on within-prompt normalization instead of a value network. It normalizes the advantages based on the standard deviation of the rewards for that specific prompt.
Which is incredibly dangerous when reward variance is low.
Think about the math. If you have a prompt with a tiny reward variance, say 0.001, you are taking a noisy, basically random advantage signal and dividing it by a microscopic standard deviation.
Right.
Mathematically, you are multiplying it by 30 or 40. You are literally exploding the noise. Normalizing by a tiny reward variance amplifies the static on the exact prompts that carry the least signal.
Appendix N details this perfectly. GRPO's normalization strategy inadvertently weaponizes low-variance prompts.
Weaponizes them.
It really does. It takes the very prompts suffering from template collapse and scales their noisy gradients into massive updates.
So for anyone using GRPO, filtering out those low-variance prompts isn't just a nice trick. It is mathematically critical to stop your optimizer from stepping on a landmine.
Absolutely critical.
Let's talk about the specific environments they tested this in because the behavioral signatures of this collapse are just super interesting.
Yeah, you can actually watch template collapse manifest in the output lengths. The authors call it reasoning length compression.
Across all 8 environments, right?
Yeah, from spatial reasoning in Sokoban to mathematical reasoning in MetaMath QA to web navigation in WebShop. As the agents collapsed into templates, their outputs systematically compressed. They just got lazy.
What did the actual numbers look like with and without the filter?
Well, take Sokoban, which requires really deep spatial grounding to map out block movements. Without filtering, the output length dropped by 16% over the course of training.
The model just started writing generic sequences of moves that sounded like a Sokoban strategy but completely ignored the actual blocks on the screen.
Exactly. But when they applied SNR-Aware Filtering, that length compression was halted, dropping by only 5%. The reasoning chains stayed robust and actually grounded in the state.
And what was the ultimate impact on peak task success rates?
It was incredibly consistent. Depending on the setup and algorithm, peak task success rates jumped anywhere from plus 3.2% to plus 8.6%.
And again, because you are just filtering existing rollouts, you get these gains at identical compute costs.
You are getting a smarter, more grounded model simply by choosing not to learn from the static.
Exactly. So just wrapping this up for the ML practitioners listening right now, if you are training LLM agents, you have to stop relying blindly on Entropy to monitor your process.
It is a faulty thermometer.
Right. Implement an MI proxy like in-batch cross-scoring. Watch out for that reasoning length compression as an early warning sign of template collapse. And consider shielding your optimizer by throwing away your low-variance rollouts.
Your gradients just do not need the noise.
They really don't. You know, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering question to ponder on your own.
Oh, lay it on us.
As the industry races toward massive self-play and RLHF pipelines, we lean incredibly heavily on KL penalties and entropy bonuses to keep models stable.
We do.
But if those exact regularizers are mathematically what erodes a model's ability to ground its reasoning in reality, are we accidentally hard-coding a ceiling on AI reasoning?
Wow.
Like, how much of the advanced reasoning we see in today's frontier models is actually just highly sophisticated template collapse that we simply haven't noticed yet?
That really forces you to look at those long, eloquent chains of thought in a completely different light.
Are they actually thinking through the problem, or are they just giving us the politician's speech? Think about that next time you watch a model reason its way through a prompt. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into RAGEN-2, and we'll catch you on the next one.